The story of King Raghavendra and the true nature of worth. In the ancient kingdom of Kalapath, there ruled a wise and just king named Raghavendra. King Raghavendra was a man of extraordinary intellect, known far and wide for his deep knowledge of governance, philosophy, and the arts. His kingdom was prosperous, and his people adored him, not only for his wealth but for his fairness and the dignity he brought to the throne. However, despite the outward perfection of his reign, King Raghavendra often found himself troubled by a nagging thought. One evening, as he walked alone in the royal gardens, reflecting on his duties, the king met an old sage named Vishwanath, who had long been known for his spiritual wisdom. The sage, sensing the king's unrest, approached him and asked, "Why do you seem troubled, O wise king? Your kingdom thrives, and your people sing your praises. What weighs upon your heart?" King Raghavendra sighed deeply. "I know that I possess all that the world could desire: beauty, knowledge, power, and wealth. Yet, I find myself uncertain about their true value. I wonder if the things I hold most dear might not have true worth after all. What use is beauty, noble birth, knowledge, or wealth if they are not properly utilized or cultivated?" Sage Vishwanath smiled kindly and replied, "Ah, my king, you are wise to question the true essence of these blessings. Beauty, birth, knowledge, and wealth, all are gifts, but they are only valuable when properly nurtured and used. Without virtue, these gifts can become burdens rather than blessings. Let me tell you a story that will shed light on these matters." The story of the four ornaments. The sage began, "Once, in a distant land, there were four individuals who each possessed one of these gifts: beauty, noble birth, knowledge, and wealth. These individuals were known far and wide for what they had, but none of them truly understood how to use their gifts properly." The sage's voice grew soft as he continued, "First, there was a beautiful maiden named Kalyani, whose beauty was unmatched. People would travel from distant kingdoms to catch a glimpse of her. Yet, despite her beauty, Kalyani had an immoral nature. She was proud, deceitful, and cruel in her dealings with others. Her beauty, though admired by all, became a curse rather than a blessing. For she used it to manipulate and deceive others, and her heart became as ugly as her actions. The beauty she had was spoiled by her immoral nature, and no one could see her for who she truly was beneath the surface." The king nodded, understanding the sage's point. "I see now that beauty is not just a gift of appearance but is tied to the goodness of one's character," he said. The sage continued, "Next, there was a nobleman named Vikram, born into a family of great lineage and honor. He was raised in luxury, with all the privileges of high birth. Yet, Vikram was selfish and reckless. He squandered his inheritance on indulgences and surrounded himself with flatterers who encouraged his poor behavior. His noble birth, which should have been a mark of greatness, was tarnished by his bad conduct. People came to see his family as no better than those of common birth because of his actions, and the nobility that should have been his became a source of shame rather than pride." The king frowned, reflecting on how much he valued his own noble heritage. Noble birth, then, he mused, is only meaningful when it is matched with virtuous conduct. The sage nodded and continued, "The third person in the story was a scholar named Narayan, a man of great intellect. He had spent many years studying ancient texts and philosophy, gaining wisdom in every subject. Yet, despite his vast knowledge, he never put his learning into practice. He remained distant from the world, immersed in his books, but never used his knowledge to benefit others or improve his life. His learning, though vast, was never perfected or applied, and so it remained useless. Knowledge is like a seed, it must be planted and nurtured to grow. Without action, knowledge becomes stagnant, and its true value is never realized." The king thought for a moment, then said, "So knowledge, while valuable, loses its worth if it is not used to better one's life and the lives of others." The sage smiled at the king's understanding and said, "Lastly, there was a merchant named Devendra, a man blessed with immense wealth. He owned vast lands, many treasures, and gold in abundance. However, Devendra was miserly and squandered his wealth on indulgence, never using it for the benefit of his people or his kingdom. His wealth, instead of being a source of prosperity for others, became a source of greed and emptiness in his life. He could have helped many with his riches, but his improper use of wealth left him hollow. Just as a beautiful flower loses its fragrance when it is not tended to, wealth loses its value when it is not spent wisely." The king looked deeply moved by the sage's words. "I now understand," he said slowly. "Wealth is not valuable unless it is used for good, to help others and contribute to the well-being of all." Sage Vishwanath nodded in approval. "Yes, my king. Beauty, birth, knowledge, and wealth, each is a gift, but they are only valuable when they are nurtured by virtue, good conduct, and wisdom. When used improperly, they become burdens that spoil the very thing they could have been. Beauty is spoiled by an immoral nature, noble birth by bad conduct, learning by being left unperfected, and wealth by being misused." The king's transformation. King Raghavendra stood silently for a long moment, reflecting on the sage's words. He realized that although he had many blessings, he had sometimes been careless with how he used them. The beauty of his kingdom, the learning of his advisors, and the wealth of his people, all were gifts that could be made more meaningful through righteousness and purpose. The king understood that the true value of his reign lay not just in what he had, but in how he used it to serve his people and the greater good. The next day, King Raghavendra called upon his ministers and advisors and shared with them the lessons he had learned. He emphasized the importance of moral excellence, righteous conduct, and the proper use of knowledge and wealth in his kingdom. He worked to ensure that beauty, wealth, and wisdom were not just displayed, but used with virtue and care. Over time, the kingdom flourished even more, as the people began to embody these virtues in their own lives. King Raghavendra became known not just for his wealth or his wisdom, but for his deep understanding of how to use these gifts in service to others. His reign was marked by fairness, peace, and prosperity, and the kingdom of Kalapath became a beacon of hope for others, a land where beauty, knowledge, and wealth were guided by righteousness. And so, the king learned the most important lesson of all: beauty is spoiled by an immoral nature, noble birth by bad conduct, learning by being left unperfected, and wealth by not being properly utilized. True greatness lies not in the gifts themselves, but in how they are used to enrich the lives of others. Thanks for watching. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to give it a like, share it with others who might benefit, and subscribe to the channel for more valuable content like this. Hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. See you in the next video.